Snowflake was a creature of ivory and alabaster, a white standard poodle whose existence was as pristine as her meticulously coiffed coat. Her home, a sprawling marble villa on the exclusive northern bank of the river, was a testament to her family's ancient and immaculate bloodline. Every surface gleamed, every cushion was silk. Snowflake herself, in keeping with the aesthetic of her life, adored dressing in white. Today it was a simple, tailored-fitted short-sleeve jacket over a layer of white fabric and a custom-made leather belt, creaminess a shade warmer than her fur. From her terraced balcony, Snowflake loves to scope out her distant neighbors across the waters with her telescope. She is so intrigued by the way they've lived their life. The river was a stark, flowing line between two worlds. Her side, the Gilded Borough, was a silent tapestry of manicured estates. The other side, the Confluence, was a riot of color, noise, and life. It was there, in a modest but tidy house with a cheerful blue door, that he lived. He was a Corgi. His coat was the color of autumn leaves, a vibrant mix of sable and white. She didn't know his name, but she knew his routine. She knew the jaunty, confident bounce in his short-legged walk, and she knew, with a certainty that was both thrilling and terrifying, that the unspoken law of their society, the breed purity mandate, fear, was the only thing keeping her restrained, because it was forbidden, a decree etched in stone and reinforced by generations of selective breeding, that a pure bloodline like hers should never mix with the beautifully chaotic gene pool of the Corgis. For weeks, the sight of him had been a secret obsession, a crack in the sterile perfection of her life. He represented everything she was not: grounded, real, part of the forbidden world, vibrant thrum. The loneliness of her gilded marble cage had become unbearable. And so, one morning, as the dawn painted the sky in cheerful blue shades of the warmth of the sun, Snowflake made a decision. She slipped out of the villa, in her custom-made pink shoes, and climbed into her own custom-built miniature electric Mercedes-Benz convertible. It was, of course, pearl white. She drove through the silent sleeping streets of the Gilded Borough to the Grand Span Bridge, the only link to the other side. At the toll booth sat a massive Chow Chow, his magnificent mane framing a face of bored authority. He looked up from his newspaper, his expression flat. "Papers," he grunted, his voice a low rumble. The law was clear. Only dogs with commercial permits or documented lineage business were allowed to cross from the Gilded Borough into the Confluence. Tourists were unheard of. Mingling was a crime. Snowflake offered him her most dazzling, hopeful smile. She tilted her head, her pearl collar catching the first rays of sun. "Good morning," she said, her voice soft and melodious. "I'm afraid I don't have papers. I've never seen the sunrise from that side of the river." The Chow Chow, whose name was Theodore, looked from her earnest, beautiful face to the gleaming white car, then back again. He had seen 1,000 desperate faces, 100 attempts at deceit. But this was different. There was no deceit in her eyes, only a profound, almost painful yearning. He saw a princess wanting to see how the common folk lived, not out of mockery, but out of genuine longing. It was foolish, it was illegal, but it was also the most romantic thing he'd seen in his 20 years at the booth. He sighed, a great gust of air that ruffled the papers in his hand. "The toll is 5 biscuits," he said, deliberately looking away from her and toward the rising sun. "And I'm not seeing any poodles in a white car. Just a trick of the light. Be careful over there. It's not like home." Her heart leaped. She pushed a small, wax-paper bag of artisanal liver biscuits, the only currency she had, through the slot. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice thick with gratitude. Theodore just grunted, and the gate lifted. Snowflake drove across the bridge. She let the top down on her car, the air whipping through her freshly polished top-knot fur, her heart pounding a rhythm of freedom and fear. As she continued to drive, the air changed, smelling less of trimmed hedges and more of biscuit bread, river water, and exhaust fumes. It was wonderful. She found his street easily parking a block away, hoping he didn't notice the car. Because the ceramic wax coating on her car was reflecting the sun like a mirror on the humble street. Moments later, his blue door opened, and out he bounced. He wore a simple, durable-looking harness and carried backpack, with today's morning newspaper. She followed at a distance, as he trotted with purpose toward the cacophony of a central plaza. He was heading for the subway. Snowflake watched from the sanctuary of her car as he disappeared into the maw of the station. She felt a pang of longing so sharp it almost made her cry. This was his life, a commute, a job, a place in the world. She had a title, a lineage, but felt out of place. She waited an hour before driving back, her mind racing. That evening, at precisely 5:28, she was on her balcony, telescope aimed at his little blue door. At 5:31 he appeared, trotting up the path. He looked tired but content. A routine. A life. Her fascination deepened into a kind of reverence. 2 weeks passed. 2 weeks of sterile dinner parties where Snowflake watched her friends, of vapid conversations about kennel clubs and Coke gloss. Every inane comment, every empty compliment, solidified her resolve. The memory of his jaunty walk and the vibrant energy of the Confluence was the only thing that felt real. She had to go back. This time, she crossed the bridge. Dressed in a white designer attire, she stops to pay the toll, 4 bags instead of 4 biscuits. She didn't speak a word as she nodded to Theodore, who gave a nearly imperceptible dip of his great head in return. She drove directly to the subway station. With haste, she moved quickly. It was an immediate shock. Every dog in the bustling station, a kaleidoscope of breeds and mixes, turned to stare. A pure white, elegantly dressed poodle from the Gilded Borough was as out of place as a flamingo in a flock of pigeons. Their stares weren't hostile, but they were intense. A mixture of curiosity, awe, and suspicion. Snowflake held her head high, her heart hammering against her ribs, and kept walking. She saw him near the platform edge, reading a folded newspaper. The train screeched into the station, a gust of warm, metallic air washing over the crowd. The doors slid open, and the throng surged forward. He was swept inside with the tide. He found a seat. He was very content and settling in. Snowflake stood frozen on the platform. Her heart is beating rapidly. This was the moment. The chimes for the closing doors began to sound. It was now or never. All her breeding, all her conditioning, screamed at her to stay, to return to her safe, white world. But the image of his contented face, the memory of his purposeful stride, propelled her forward. At the very last second, as the doors began to slide shut, she leaped. She landed gracefully inside the car, the doors hissing closed behind her like a final verdict. The train lurched into motion. The rattling of the car was the only sound in her world. Every eye in the car was on her now. But she only had eyes. For him, he looked up from his paper, a flicker of annoyance at the commotion, and then his eyes widened. He saw her. He saw this impossible, ethereal creature, a dog who looked like she was carved from moonlight and cloud, standing in the middle of a gritty subway car. He recognized her. Somehow, maybe he'd seen her car, or maybe he'd felt her gaze from across the river, a strange pull he could never identify. Time seemed to slow as she began to walk toward him. The other passengers, a gruff bulldog, a pair of gossiping terriers, a lanky greyhound, all faded into the background. She moved with an innate grace that defied the rocking of the train, a vision in white gliding through the grime. She stopped right in front of his seat. He stared up at her, his amber eyes wide with disbelief, his newspaper forgotten in his lap. He opened his mouth to say something, but no words came out. Snowflake didn't say a word. She simply leaned down, her long, elegant neck arching. Gently, she touched her nose to his and then, with a soft, decisive motion, licked him once across his fuzzy cheek. A doggy kiss. It was warm and innocent, and carried the weight of 1,000 unspoken words. His entire body went rigid with shock. Before he could finish processing what just took place with this strange female, she straightened up. With a swiftness that belied her gentle approach, she reached into a small pocket of her jacket and pulled out a tiny, folded square of paper. She tucked it neatly into the paw that rested limply on his knee. Then, just as gracefully as she had arrived, she turned and walked away, her back straight, her head held high. The train was already pulling into the next station. Without a single glance back, she stepped out onto the platform and was instantly swallowed by the crowd, leaving him sitting in stunned silence, the warmth of her kiss still tingling on his face, and a small piece of paper, holding an entire world of possibility, resting in his paw. Thank you for listening until the end. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. But before you go, tell me, what do you think the outcome will be with Snowflake and the Corgi? Will he accept her advances? Will she be in jail for disobeying the laws of the land? Will Theodore lose his job? To find out the answer to these questions, subscribe so you will not miss a thing.